All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the We Are One podcast. Today we got a virtual show here. The first time actually doing the video format with a virtual show, so that's pretty cool. Welcome to our guest today, Stacia Wilson. What's up with you?
Hey,
Welcome to the podcast. Um, I,
thanks.
I'm excited to chat with you because the interest here in this conversation is one thing that really has motivated me in the year 2020, which is the unity movement. Um, it's really, I guess, just given me some hope and optimism and something to be excited about as like politically, because for since I was a kid, it was like there was nothing really to be excited about, in my opinion. And what I felt like, I've always just felt like, oh, the government's corrupt, politicians suck, and this and that. So unity gave me something to actually be excited about and want to like wholeheartedly back. Um, so I guess let's just get right into it. Stacia, I guess I'm getting all over the place. It's been a stressful few days. I knew I was going to do this too. I even warned you before we hit record. But you're joining
No
us.
worries.
You're joining us all the way from Los Angeles,
hmm
right?
Yep. It's warm here. I had to take my jacket off. I don't
Yeah.
know about there. I guess you're in a t-shirt too.
No,
But
it's
yeah.
actually cold here right now. So I'm in Minnesota,
Oh.
and we're having early onset winter this year.
Oh, wow.
It's already snowed like
Well,
9 inches.
oh my gosh.
It's steadily been below freezing.
Did not realize that was
Yeah,
already happening.
yeah. It's it's
Oh, wow.
it's kind of sad. So
Oh.
Stacia, for you, when did you get exposed to Unity for the first time this year?
Actually, same as you, I first heard about it on Joe Rogan's podcast when Brett introduced it. And I remember being so excited that he was presenting a solution because I started listening to podcasts in May or end of May or early June. And so I'd been listening to all these podcasts and finding out about the corruption a bit. And um, I've never been politically engaged like my whole adult life. I'm going to turn 30 this year and I've never voted.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I've never paid attention to politics. I also didn't grow up in the US and I've kind of just not felt much ownership for my country, to be honest. And so this year has been a real wake up, just realizing how bad things have gotten. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
when I heard Brett bring it up on Joe Rogan, I got really excited. Um, I had been feeling really hopeless. Like the more I learned, I was just like, oh my God, how do we fix this?
Hmm.
Um, and so it seemed like a real solution. But also, so when I heard about it, I actually looked up his website and messaged to like sent him an email saying I want to get involved. And so eventually I heard back, but I had already registered on the Slack by then.
Okay.
Um,
The volunteer channel on the Slack.
yeah, the volunteer channel. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So I think if I was a listener, I would probably be curious. Where did you grow up then?
Oh, Japan.
In Japan. That's pretty
Yeah, from when
wild.
I was 3 to 18.
Okay. So were you born here in the United States and then you were out there?
Hmm.
What brought you to
Yeah.
Japan? I'm just curious.
Oh, my parents are missionaries,
Okay.
so they were working with churches.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's a
Yeah.
fascinating experience. My girlfriend
Yeah.
is from Macedonia, and one thing that
Oh,
really excites me, like when we get to, really get to know one another and just like context of each other and things like that, is it largely feels like she like opens the world up to me because she has like this
nice.
experience that is completely different from mine, and the United States isn't
Nice.
all that the world is, so it's nice to
Yeah.
feel like the door is cracked open to kind of get some experience and perspective from the rest of the world. And I
Nice.
imagine that's like what you got out of living in Japan for 15 years.
Yeah. I mean, I yeah, I just see the world as my home. And so I don't feel like I'm Japanese, but I don't really feel American either.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, part of why I got involved in Unity was just worrying about my passport. Like, um, because I have friends, Russian friends and other friends who it's really hard for them to travel because their passports need to get visas in order to go to all these places. And so um, I felt like things were getting really bad in the US, and I started to get worried that it might even, affect our passports.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable concern for sure. I know, um, again, with my girlfriend just this year through like the lockdown, they were talking about revoking student visas. That was like
Mm,
a major concern for us for a little bit.
yeah.
And it seemed just like a direct, like almost retaliation from the current administration on the restrictions that other countries were um, putting towards the United States, because according to
Mm,
them, due to our poor handling and response to the virus. And it just felt like straight retaliation from the administration. And I just remember thinking, partly like what excites me about Unity is like we don't need like ego and just like that sense of like competition in the White House. I feel
yeah.
like we,
Yeah.
like you alluded to before, like the proposal of Unity is a solution oriented um, idea or concept. That's what excites me about it. It's not just um, issue
Yeah.
oriented, I guess, kind of like I think we said that right before we hit record. Um,
Yeah.
so when you got involved, like you said, you reached out immediately and you tried to become a volunteer and see how you could be active and involve yourself with it. Where did that take you in the beginning? Like getting into that Slack channel, did you, what'd you discover?
Well, I actually took a look around and it seemed kind of chaotic. And I also wasn't totally sold on it yet. And so I don't know, I couldn't find the motivation to really get involved then. It was actually the first campfire with Eric when I was like, okay, let's go for it. And then since then, I went in like 100% and just that was my whole life for 2 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
But so, in what ways were you involved in those 2 months then?
Um, Actually, first, let me tell you why he got me involved. Like,
Okay, that would have been a better
yeah,
question to
because
ask.
oh no, well, um, so when Eric was on the campfire, I remember they talked about um the American Revolution, and they kind of drew a comparison. And since then, I've thought about it more, and I that was like totally my image of unity was like the Paul Revere kind of like um, those stories that we heard growing up in school about patriots who were like we're not having like the representation is not satisfactory and we need to rebel, like things can't go on as they have, and so we need to change things, and that kind of like band of ragtag people with smart leaders and just kind of Americans pulling together to make something happen. um yeah, it was that vibe that really caught me. And I even then I didn't believe it could work, but I realized that it was worth it to get involved even if it couldn't win. um and then after that, I at the first day of action, people were talking about like they seriously wanted to win, and I was like, oh, okay, like let's try then, let's
Yeah.
go for it. Um, so that was another turning point for me. It was kind of like the faith, that we could do something serious kind of grew by being involved and talking with the people and stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
With
Yeah.
I like the American Revolution comparison quite a bit, and I think that stood out to me. I can't remember who I heard say it for the first time, and it might have been Eric also who said it, because I also listened to um, some of Eric Weinstein's content. But that I like that American Revolution or comparison quite a bit, in that it really is um, reminiscent in a lot of ways, where like our concern and unity is the lack of representation, right? Where
Yeah.
like the current like political establishment and the people that are in office aren't really answering to or representing their constituents or their districts. They a lot of the
Yeah.
establishment seems to be just sold out to corporate interest and lobbying groups and small groups with lots of money, right?
Hmm.
And you know the wealth gap continues to grow, and the wealth tax continues to decline, and all these things. It feels like people like myself and like you are just being left behind by this establishment and largely forgotten about. The working class in particular, because the working class is carries this country on its back. And even through coronavirus, and most recently realizing like there's going to be no coronavirus relief package until after the election. That's insane. Most other countries had a
Yeah.
plan passed, you know, before May,
Yeah.
and we passed one, and then another that didn't get approved, and just it's just crazy that people are desperate for a solution, and the representatives continue to um, fail us. Sorry, my Facebook beeped. Now that's going to be in the that'll be in the podcast too. Um, that totally got me distracted, but uh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. Um, and another comparison I like to the American Revolution is how the British had their way of fighting. Do you remember, like, they'd line up and they'd do the aim and the fire thing,
mm-hmm.
and they had their rows, and um, yeah, they expected that everyone would kind of respect their rules. Um, and the Americans, like the Patriots, couldn't win like that, and they realized that, and so they did different tactics. They did the skirmish, uh, where they surprised them and hid in the bushes, and um, so I like that, like that comparison to Unity, because I feel like Unity is also about changing the game. Like, it was a realization that we can't win by their rules, and so we need to change the game. We need to change the rules, and you know,
Step up
um,
and take matters into our own hands as a
and not keep trying the same thing over and over, right? Because third parties have been tried and haven't worked.
right.
The system's set up so that they can't win that way, and so yeah. Should we explain Unity? Do all your viewers
I
know what it is?
you know we probably should, I guess. I mean, I feel like anyone who is listening has heard me talk about it or expose themselves to it, but that's probably a silly assumption to make. So maybe we should give it some context and describe it. Do you want to describe it in your own words, and I'll pick up where you leave off or something?
Sure. So Unity was an idea that we take a candidate from the left and a candidate from the right, and we pair them together to run equally. So one would have the title of president and one would have the title of VP, but they would agree to govern together. And um, so the idea was that it would draw votes equally from both Democrat and Republican parties, as well as third party voters, and that it would it would engage a lot of disengaged voters. Um, I guess like myself, who have never voted before. So yeah, and
Yeah.
in that way, it could actually win. And also, it's not a party, so we don't have a convention and stuff. We were just going to draft candidates. Um, so we did have a little vote to kind of pick who we would draft.
That had
But
ranked choice
then,
voting too. That was exciting.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and what I think, shoot, what was I just thinking? One, I was thinking the decision of who is going to be the president on the ticket and who's going to be on the vice president on the ticket. It would be an equal agreement to decide that based on a coin flip, so just a 50-50
yeah,
chance. So it's not like one party specifically is going to have the reins to whatever it is. Um, what else was it? Oh, and it was like, to me, it was an antidote to like the polarization and the political divide that we're seemingly being like engineered to experience. Like it seems like
yeah,
the powers that be, you know, without getting too specific of what I think that might be, want, you know, the people within our country to be divided, and we're being driven one way and the other, and unity was a way to either, you know, give voice to all these moderates and people that kind of fall in between the both of the extremes that are widely the ideologies we seem to be getting exposed to, so give voice to that center, and then close that gap, mend that gap. That was, I thought, have you watched The Social Dilemma yet by chance?
yeah.
I thought
Mm-hmm.
I thought their graph that they showed of like the political divide and the way that it's gotten larger since the implementation of social media. I love that graphic, and that's what I imagine now when I think of like the divide. I think of just that red and that blue just kind of going further into their sides.
Yeah,
And unity was going to be a way to, you know, hopefully put a grip around that and not like force,
yeah,
but draw people back together.
yeah,
I shouldn't even talk about it in past tense, because it still has potential for Unity 2024. It still has my support. How do you feel about Unity going into 2024? I guess since it's not a viable, doesn't have a viable chance of winning this year.
well, I'm just waiting to see what it becomes. I think they're trying to make it a nonprofit, but maybe also discussing making it an actual political party. Um, so yeah, I don't know what it will be yet. Um, but I think there's a wider unity movement that has to happen. And I think Unity 2020 or whatever that org is will be part of that. Um, yeah.
From your,
So like,
oh, go ahead.
yeah.
Or
Um, oh, go ahead.
it's just tough because there's a couple second delay. So you take a
Yeah.
pause, and I think you're done talking. So I start, and then you're not done, and I'm like, ah. Um, did you want to add something else there at the end?
Um, well, just about the wider unity movement. So Braver Angels is one organization that's doing a lot to try and be, part of that movement. And then also the other day, did you watch Yang's podcast with Amash, Justin Amash?
No, unfortunately,
Yeah.
I haven't yet.
Ooh. Okay, you need to check it out because it was super unity. Like at the end, I feel like Justin Amash was trying to sell Yang on unity, but then Yang was also like, "Yeah, let's keep in touch. We need to work together to like fix the country," kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are two people, and Humanity Forward, as an organization, and Humanity First also are some good, organizations that could be part of unity as a wider movement.
Yeah, if that's what I kept thinking throughout the summer is like there needs to just be like a unity umbrella, and all
Yeah,
these organizations need to just like come under the umbrella and still be independent, but commit their
yeah,
support to the unity movement.
yes, yeah. And it needs to be like non-ideological, but focused on unity and solutions and like discussing solutions, I think. The the best thing I feel like I've learned from being part of Unity is that, like, I'm on the left, but from talking to conservatives in Unity, I've learned that there are so many good critiques or concerns that conservatives have that are really useful to consider if we want to find what will actually be beneficial for everyone, because I think there's no magic bullet or magic solution that's going to be perfect. But um, if we like pay attention to both the conservative ideas, and values and concerns, and then also pair that with the progressive ideas of like things we could change, I feel like that's really the best balance.
Hmm. Yeah, I personally absolutely agree because I'm with you. I think I fall in the category of left and more of like the progressive type. But it is certainly constructive to hear people's ideas that don't think like me, right? If
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of the issue with social media right now, and what's driving the divide is all we're listening to are people that agree with what we think, and they're just saying things that we already know that we agree with. If you're not getting
Yeah.
exposed to any idea outside of your own, one, your idea can't grow at all. It can't change
Mm-hmm.
or turn into something new. But two, it can't change or grow something new, but it won't be tested at all either if you're not at least
Yeah.
considering. You gotta. I feel like you gotta weigh. One thing I learned recently, just like listening to podcasts, was how like when you're, I guess, officially arguing for something, you need to be able to also like falsify it and see like the fallacy in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to me that's what stands out with what you were just talking about is just
Mm-hmm.
um, that opportunity, or Unity gave both of us, I think, the opportunity was being exposed to some maybe like right wing or conservative ideas that I might not have heard before, that you know I might not agree
Mm-hmm.
with, but at the same time I can understand from that person's perspective why they think that is a good way to do things, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's probably actually one of the most constructive things that I've gotten out of Unity so far. Um,
Right.
that
Yeah.
Facebook group, when I first got in there, I think there was only like 7,000 people or something when I first joined it,
Oh wow.
and it was just like really, I didn't even comment or share very much in it, but I got a lot out of just reading the people that were reading that dialogue. I thought some
Mm-hmm.
people a little bit hostile and brought their emotion into it and whatnot, but I think the admin did really good at kind of trying to keep control of some of that, um, without being too controlling, right? But it was just really
We
nice
tried.
civil dialogue. Yeah, are you admin of that Facebook group then?
No, moderator.
Moderator? Okay.
Um, but so doing that is kind of my job, is, trying to make sure it's a lot of trying to balance like keeping it constructive and civil, but also not censoring people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so sometimes we'd get messages, like, why did you censor me? And we're just trying to keep it civil and not partisan, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
What? So, I think that might be a curious thing to kind of get into for a second. Is that like moderation piece? Because largely, um, part of this conversation right now is also like censorship, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and now in your experience, like removing a post, I understand like you're not trying to remove someone's idea, or you're not trying to give, you want equal playing time from both sides of the
Mm-hmm.
aisle, right? So you're not trying to influence what type of ideas are being heard, but you there is a line there that if something crosses it, you're going to remove it. What does that line look like in like the Unity Facebook group for you?
Oh, sometimes we would have discussions in, like, we have a private Facebook chat where for the moderators and the admins, and like sometimes we would have differing opinions. Like, I think of, there was a post about communism, and like if the left is communist or if BLM is communist or something like that. And I thought it would be good to approve the post and discuss it, because I knew a lot of people in the group did think, that the left is communist, and it just seemed like a good thing to discuss and kind of air out. But then some of the moderators thought that that post itself was not constructive, like it wasn't even a good post on the topic. So I ended up deleting it. There were so many not constructive comments on it, and a lot of people were actually mad that I approved it. It was actually a post by someone on the left, and the article was saying that it's like a made up fear, that the left is communist, or that some communist movements are going on right now or something.
It's a Red Scare 2.0.
Yeah. So
is what
it was
maybe
trying
what
to
that
say,
person would have said.
I don't know what that is. What is Red Scare?
Oh, so in my understanding, the Red Scare was like during Soviet Russia and the Cold War, and some of the propaganda at the time was about that ideology infiltrating the United States. So I've heard it referred to currently as like the Red Scare 2.0, where all the talking points are Democrats are radical socialists and communists and stuff like that. There has been a lot pulled out of the like old political playbook, like the topics of law and order and protecting the suburbs, and just some of the talking points on immigration and trying to vilify the other side, being the left and the Democrats, and pointing fingers and blame and stuff. Like, they've pulled out every tactic in the book that has historically worked for a Republican candidate or administration. But it seems like people are, not everybody, but a lot of people are really seeing almost like right through it, where it's like it feels so inauthentic when like, say, Donald Trump specifically is talking about protecting the suburbs from low income housing. Like, it's like
I didn't even hear that. Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, he says that somewhat regularly when he's like basically pleading with white suburban women to vote for him, and the talking point is like, come on, I've restored order in your communities. Do you see any low income housing being built right now, and things like that? And it's like, damn, it's pretty gross. Where do we go from here? Unity.
So, yeah, for a unity movement going forward, I think it really needs to be non-ideological. So it seems like there's kind of a culture war going on, kind of between left and right, I guess, or at least those are the labels. And I feel like any unity movement needs to be focused on solutions. Like, do you listen to Brett much?
A little bit. There's so many shows at this point in time where it's like, I wish I was listening to all of them. But I try to listen to the Dark Horse podcast.
But yeah, I haven't been listening so much lately, but I'm sure he talks about the Mott and Bailey fallacy. It's a fallacy, but so the Mott and Bailey fallacy is that there's like an extreme position and a reasonable position, and they kind of are under the same title. And so, like, for example, abolish the police would be an extreme position, and then like reform, demilitarize, and qualified immunity, all of those would be like reasonable positions that most people share. And so there's this thing that's going on where the extreme people are kind of hiding behind the same term as the reasonable people. And so then all these reasonable people are like defending the extreme people because they think they're reasonable too. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, when you try to attack the extreme position, but they retreat to the reasonable position and say, oh, we didn't mean abolish, we mean reform or defund, yeah. So my point with that is I feel like sometimes, uh, even in Unity, not everyone, but just sometimes I would see us attacking the um, extreme position. And I kind of think we don't need to be attacking, like for a unity movement. I think we should be focused on the reasonable positions that most people share. And I kind of feel like, just in a wider sense, there's a thing going on in our culture right now where we have these labels and really binary options. And so
Identity.
people get behind their binary option, whether it's left or right, and then they kind of can't see that actually we generally agree that, some change needs to happen in this area. And it kind of like keeps us from solutions because we're yelling about our binary titles, like, I'm pro this and anti that. And yeah, so I just kind of,
I feel like I feel like it's almost evolved a little bit, where for a while the issue was solely identities from my perspective, where like identity politics and like seeing someone for their identity and potentially what like stereotype or stigma they fall into, as opposed to just seeing them as a human being. But I feel like identity has now like turned into, like, if you identify, say, as black, then you're like aligned with an ideology now, where it's like identity has like shifted into something else. I don't know how to articulate it, but it feels like that's like evolved into something a little bit harder to come up with a solution for now, because like say I don't identify as black because I'm brown and nobody's skin color is black. So to me that's just like that's a structure of identity, like a binary structure of identity that isn't really even descriptive of my characteristic. Like, I'm brown, I'm not fucking black. I don't know how else to say it. But being like, let's say I do identify as black, then I don't know. I was thinking about this at the gym too, because there's some that I live in, like, kind of, it's not rural, but it's like suburban Minnesota. And there's a lot of white people, which no issue for me. But I feel like a lot of times I see people like in the gym, and it feels like they're assuming that I'm assuming something about them, like, which is really, really weird.
Oh, yeah. If we're going to talk identity politics, yeah, it has totally changed how I interact with Black people, or non-white, or whatever race, really, because now I have to think, like, are they hating me, or are they going to be easily offended, or do I need to tiptoe, or what's the right thing to say? Or it's made it really weird, until you know what that person's like views are on the matter. Like you, I know that you're not going to be offended. You seem
I'm pretty open.
fine,
it's hard to offend me.
Yeah. but until I don't know, it's made it really weird for white people, I think, and maybe Asians. I don't know,
yeah,
but
I think it's really just made it like weird for people kind of in general right now, where like I was talking about, like, people assuming, it's like we're assuming people's positions based on their identity, but yet like they're strangers and we don't really even know the way that they identify. So I catch this in myself, and I'd like stop it dead in its tracks, right? I don't treat someone different based off it, but I might see like I might see like a white guy who, like, I might in my head like just assume, oh, he's definitely voting Trump, and then if I follow that, like, that
interesting,
that like if I follow that stereotype and that judgment, then it leads to me thinking like, oh, now he's looking at me and he's probably judging me based because I'm brown and this and that.
Wow.
And it's like I'm not going to treat him anywhere different, but I'm just conscious of that thought train happening in my head, and it's almost like uncontrollable. And I'm curious for a lot of people who maybe, not to say my brain works any better than anybody else's, but someone that might not be conscious of that judgment and almost becoming like victim to that train of thought. I'm curious where their head is at when they run into situations like that. Are they still going to be open to communicating with this person, or are they going to judge them differently based on this irrational train of thought that they haven't substantiated, that they're just assuming based on this person's identity? And it's weird. And then I think sometimes, say I see this white guy at the gym. There's this one guy in particular, he always wears like a Trump mask, which cool. I don't give a fuck. Like, do your thing. But I always feel like he's looking at me, assuming that I'm assuming something about him. Like, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And it's weird. It's really weird. We should
It's really weird.
I prefer to just see a person as a person. It's almost like as people, we can't resist judging other people. Like, without judgment, I think we would probably be dead sooner than we should be, because like we have to judge situations to understand how to respond to them. But you can't, like, I understand that my judgment is just a judgment. It's like reactionary. I'm judging, but then I need to like substantiate my judgment before I treat you differently based on it. So but I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, as humans, we do need to not just be 100% trusting of everyone. Like, if we're talking about judging, I mean, I feel like women go through life judging, or just, trying to be careful of the situations they put themselves in. So I feel like it's normal to but it's not a identity thing. It's just a, like, but I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I think we do need to go through life judging, because that's evolutionarily, you need to be safe, but that doesn't.
I think it just depends on how we decide to interact with that judgment. Because go ahead.
Yeah. And well, I'm just trying to think. I feel like we might be using different words of judging. I mean, I don't know. I guess so. Sometimes I forget that there are people who are going around maybe thinking, like, I don't know, negative things based on someone's race or sexuality or something. But I don't know. I feel like most people of our generation aren't doing that, or I don't know. I feel like we tend to see each person as an individual and kind of interact with them based on the situation. Do we not?
I don't think we do.
You don't think we do?
No, I personally don't think we do. I'm really concerned about. Well, I'm only 24. So
okay.
You're a little bit.
Almost 30.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit difference in generation, where the people you might be interacting with might be a bit more mature than the people that I'm interacting with and seeing expose themselves and their ideas on social media and whatnot. And
I'm also in LA, so I don't know. People in LA, I feel like, are super open to people being the way they want to be.
Right. I'm concerned that there's a lot of judgment happening, like in my age group of, and like picking sides, either BLM or supporting Trump. And kind of what I was getting into about like identity, where it's like they're conflating people's identity with the ideology that they support. And that to me, it seems kind of like based on judgment, like people making a judgment of someone's identity and then putting them without knowing for sure into a specific camp. But maybe you don't see that yourself, which actually for me would be kind of like hopeful. That would make me kind of hopeful to know that
maybe it is just my region or my age group, and it's not everybody, right?
Well, yeah, so I feel like I've just started doing that since end of May. So it's sad that I've been taught that from social media. You know, like
Yeah.
I feel like but not everyone does it. They're still normal people.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when I'm not on social media and when I'm interacting with more normal people, it feels really good. Because they're not thinking that way. But yeah, from the end of May when I don't know, something changed then. I don't know if it's everywhere, but in my
That's my
something
pineal gland.
changed.
Just like
What?
that's my pineal gland lightening up. Uh, that's a whole nother conversation. But I feel like there was like an enlightenment that happened almost like for a lot of
Oh,
people that.
and
Yeah.
but was it an enlightenment? Like, I guess it's good that, yeah, I guess in some ways it was. Like, I didn't know about all the corruption and, all the problems with our government and people who aren't getting what they need from it and stuff. But there's also not good stuff, I feel like, that happened. Like what you're talking about, like starting to see identities as tied to ideologies. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you in this election here, since unfortunately unity won't be on the ballots, well, people are already voting, so unity isn't on the ballots. It's not that it won't be, but it isn't. What to you is like at stake in this election? Or is it being completely blown out of proportion?
Well, I thought it was a big deal, but I don't know that things are going as badly as we expected. I don't know. I've become less convinced that it could lead to civil war or something. And part of that might just be that I see no solution. And so I'm just kind of resigned. Like, I don't see what I can do at this point. I was planning to vote for Jorgensen, but then she came on the campfire and I really don't agree with her.
Yeah. I didn't watch that. I just saw the Facebook group kind of go up and be like, "Oh, she's crazy" or something. Like that seemed like what a lot of people were saying.
It was unfortunate.
What was it about that that campfire and what you got exposed to that made you change your mind?
Well, she was very unreasonable.
Unreasonable?
Unreasonable, yeah. I mean, Brett was trying to find a point of connection and get her to agree that we need to band together. Like, we don't have to agree on the same approaches to government. There's all this stuff that we cannot agree on, but ultimately we both see that the government, like the system, is broken and we need to fix the system so that we can even have ideological discussions. And she wouldn't agree to it. She just kept bringing it back to, so you guys should join me and become libertarian and vote libertarian and stuff. And
it sounds like she came onto the show with a mission.
Yeah. So some people were saying we should have her back, like when she's not campaigning, after the election. Maybe she'll be more open. But
what do you think about the Libertarian Party and its like ideology? Or do you know much? I don't
know a ton about it.
Okay.
I don't. I have a friend who's kind of libertarian, and he was like affectionately telling me about how weird the party is. Sent me some videos of like a guy doing a striptease or something at their convention or something like that. Like he was taking his clothes off.
Sounds hot.
Yeah. But yeah, so he was saying they're quirky and um yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
I
there's a
guess
reason the Libertarian Party is an outlier, because it sounds like
maybe
a lot of like social outliers might be a part of the party. Not that that's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, but
it it could be. I also had a thought like I'm not sure how many really serious political people would get involved with it, because it's not a real option if you want to get elected. I mean, I think Amash is the only libertarian in Congress, I think. And so, and there's never been a libertarian president. So it's just not a place for really ambitious political people to go, I don't think.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, especially certainly in the current climate. What I guess my little understanding of like libertarianism is small government, security, and private ownership.
I think also might be more government like locally, rather than federal government. Yeah. Yeah, but that's basically my understanding too.
Now it's got me thinking, because I just learned a little bit just about like anarchy and like anarchists and what like that belief is, and it kind of seems, maybe I have a limited understanding, but it kind of seems like libertarianism and anarchism are like pretty close on the spectrum.
Well, Joe Jorgensen sounded pretty anarchist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's I guess there's in the larger like social sphere currently, I think there's some like misconceptions about anarchism. Like we hear the word anarchy, and I think we immediately think like rioting, no rules, and this and that. But it listening to Michael Malice recently, if you know who that is at all, I think I understood it and took it seriously as an actual political ideology, as opposed to before just believing it was just like, V for Vendetta, like no rules, no law, warlords, and that's how I like pictured anarchy before. But I think it's something that is an ideology to be actually taken seriously, because there's people that support anarchy for a reason, and it's not just for pure chaos. They think that's an appropriate method to try and run a country with.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to learn more. I got to get an anarchist on the show to describe to me anarchy.
Right.
Which is actually also interesting, how like currently we have anarchist jurisdictions, right? Being I think Seattle, Portland, and New York are anarchist jurisdictions. Interesting. I'll have to think more about that. So the question I asked that kind of led us on this little tangent was, I asked like, what to you is like at stake in this election? And I think partially for me personally, it feels at this point like a little like blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
It feels like there is like some insidious like shadow power grab that's happening, and the method of gaining that control was to politically divide the country. Like that was like step one, and they've been successful. So now it's like kind of wondering, all right, what's step two? And maybe actually step one might have been the institutions being kind of overrun by specific ideologies, and then compelled speech, and then it's like this people wearing their their political belief on their sleeve as like a banner of some sorts. What comes next in your opinion?
Well, so I think the three things that are dividing us are the news, right? The media, social media, and the political parties, kind of cynically, it seems like, because that's how they're trying to maintain power. And I'm not sure that there's actually a grand plan to this. I almost would prefer if there was some insidious plan that someone was hatching, and they had an outcome in mind, but I'm worried there's not. And so I'm worried, the outcome could just be
chaos and the fall of an
chaos.
empire, essentially, which
Yeah.
ultimately might be what the insidious plot is to essentially see like the downfall of the institutions and the structures that uphold America, right?
It could be, but then I assume something else is coming in to take over. I guess something probably will either way. But yeah, I don't see what the good solution is right now. Yeah,
I don't either.
that's
Because what
yeah.
sucks is we have to wait until 2024 to go outside of the political establishment, right? And
But do we? I mean, so is the president the only, like, is it the only option?
no, we definitely need to
Um,
vote in police chiefs, mayors, governors, Senate, Republicans. I'm drawing a blank. But we need to vote in on a local level some of these, outside of
yeah.
the establishment figures, which I think they are going to be popping up everywhere, because we understand as a nation that it's going to take some of us that are thinking this way and talking this way to step up and take control back from the people that don't really seem to have our best interests at heart, because if they did, they'd fucking figure out what to do with the economy and this relief package and quit being... Why are we polarized over science? I don't get that.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. Are there that many Unity people stepping up? It seems like it's mostly more extremists. That's my concern, is that it seems like some people are stepping up, but some of them are just, not actually unifying.
Yeah.
But hopefully some Unity people will step up.
Hopefully, absolutely, I agree. But I think maybe you have a point where, like, because that's something I've said for a few months now, and I've probably heard it somewhere else first. Just being that, like, the loudest voices are the most extreme, right? But the majority of people fall somewhere kind of in the middle. And the extremist voices are so loud right now that it seems like anyone that is falling into that category of belief or ideology maybe feels like they have a window of opportunity to now step in and take control of something. So I think you might have a point where what we see now over the next year, maybe two, kind of maybe depending on how this election goes, and who ends up in the next presidency, the next term of presidency, but that might determine kind of who is stepping up and trying to win those elections on a local level. But if, say, like, if Joe Biden wins and there are, certain far left or far right, I mean, it doesn't even matter who wins. I guess either way, those extremists are going to be wanting to take some of those political, more powerful and influential positions. That's actually I don't like to be concerned about that. I prefer to be optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from what I learned from Unity, just how for every great idea we have on the left, the right actually has concerns, and kind of provides a checks and balances to the ideas. And so now I'm actually finding myself kind of concerned if someone is like just on the left and doesn't seem like they're interested in conservative opinions. Because we can actually do a lot of damage just, trying to have good intentions and help people out, but then, end up screwing things up by not considering the long-term results, or
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying completely, and I think
I need to have a deeper understanding as to certain political ideologies. But I've recently thought about, like, I think maybe I'm like fiscally conservative, but like socially progressive, right? Where, because I think that there's a lot of I don't know, because I guess one, I think that one, because the social conservatism doesn't, like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get how it just doesn't make sense to me. I understand that there's some people that, like, genetically or based on the way that they were raised, like, that's the category they might more so fall into. A lot of times it seems like it's also people that haven't really faced too much adversity, so they haven't been pushed outside of their comfort zone. So it makes sense, like, rationally. But I don't know, but fiscal conservatism is something, even in my own personal banking and checking account, I know nothing about, and I see it working for you know, some of the wealthiest people in our world, right, and whatnot. So yeah, I just think there's something to that, and I do understand that I certainly need a deeper understanding as to that, but I think that's kind of where I fall in line myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure how many people there are that actually don't care about injustices that are happening. I think sometimes you need to use their language. It seems like both sides kind of have their own vocabulary of what concepts or what language makes sense to them. And I feel like if you try to explain maybe some progressive ideas with conservative language, you know, or like touching on their values, it could maybe be more effective.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think there's definitely a messaging issue with a lot of things. Like when we address like the war on drugs, right? Like conservatively, it makes sense to end the war on drugs because it, like, fiscally conservatively, and it makes sense to end the war on drugs and like deprivatize prisons and all these things because of the amount of money that it would eventually save our economy and our spending of power within the economy. And then we look at like Medicare for all, like the country would save something like $17 trillion if we implemented some of the plans that have already been proposed. Like there's like some of these progressive ideas are actually saving us money, but they're not being presented that way. It's just like Medicare for all. No, we can't do that because our current system works. Well, like, we need an opportunity to dive deeper into that topic.
Yeah. And like Medicare for all, couldn't we present it rather than, because the right is afraid that it's like a socialist thing and the quality is going to go down and they won't have a choice. But I feel like if we present it as like, if we make it clear that they would still have a choice, right? And that it would just, like, it would save all that money. And it would ensure that, you know, we all have a basic level of, you know, coverage, but they have total freedom to get whatever they want. I feel like that's what the right cares about, right? Is that freedom. And like that freedom to feel like they can take care of themselves. And then if we point out that it saves money, I feel like there are ways to knock the concerns out generally, and address, you know, maybe they would agree to it if it was with certain provisions, or I feel like it's possible. I'm really frustrated that we're doing such a bad job of like,
with Medicare for all specifically. Like, I just think if people had a willingness and openness to try and understand it and not just have an emotional reaction to it, like, it would make a lot of sense to them. And I can't imagine a lot of people wouldn't support it. And if I think just probably, like, from my own shoes, sorry, just real quick, just from my own experience, like I just got insurance this summer for like the first time in like 8 years or something like that. Maybe a little bit, like 6 or 7 years. And like I don't know, I wish I would have had access to insurance sooner, but I just didn't have access to it really. And I would have
been of, I mean, I haven't been to the dentist since I was like 12 years old or something crazy like that.
Oh, wow.
Actually, no, that's a
That
lie.
is,
I got a
wow.
root canal
Oh,
when I was like
oh.
17, but
Mm.
that's completely besides the point. I forgot what I was talking about even. You were going to say something though.
I was gonna say maybe it needs to be rebranded. Maybe it should be rebranded as like decoupling in like insurance from employment, you know, so that you get more choice, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a big part of it, right? Is that right now insurance is tied to your employment, and so like maybe there are angles to it that would be more marketable. Maybe it needs a different name now that that name has been smeared by the
Like
right.
tainted, yeah. Smeared would be a better word, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like big picture, what I would love to see is some kind of unity movement coming forth, and um, for it to really have that vibe of, you know, patriots coming together to like, this needs to happen now. We need to change the system and like do everything we can to change it. Um, and then a number of them running for government, and hiring a marketing team or having a marketing team, you know, for this national organization that is just super kick-ass and just really like frames issues in a creative way, um, that can bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
That would be so cool.
You just made me think, like, also I think something that is very needed going forward being like willingness and openness to hear the other side and just like to seek understanding when you're communicating, like, because it's something.
Yeah.
I'm even annoying myself at this point, but I think I've repeated this on like the past like 8 episodes of the podcast. But I don't think people don't make irrational decisions, right? We all have like rationalizations and reasons for doing the things that we do. So like if you're doing something that I think is crazy, in your mind, you're making the right decision, or you have an excuse or a rationalization as to why that's the appropriate thing for you to do. I think I've repeated that a bunch, but I think just to seek understanding as to what rationalization does the, you know, other side have for opposing Medicare for all, right? And from my perspective right now, the rationalization that they have isn't even like rooted in facts. It's just rooted in like these smear campaign talking points that are just like emotional reactions to progressivism or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, even the Democrats aren't really on board with Medicare for all.
Yeah. So that also, yeah, you're absolutely right, and that points to the bigger issue of like special interests having more influence on our politicians than the constituents have on their representatives.
I'd love to see, this is a different topic, but as part of our, if we're fixing the country right now, you know, if we're making our wish list, I'd love to see education reform and teaching people more about how our government works and how they can get involved, and the pros and cons of various issues. You know, I feel like at least when I learned civics, it was very rudimentary, I feel like, and very it
wasn't very applicable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't relevant. And I don't remember if we got into any issues like discussing, you know, the pros and cons and the arguments for or against and the different angles and looking for solutions. And I feel like that could be a very interesting and relevant way to teach kids about politics.
Yeah. I seem to agree, and education reform is absolutely needed because, you know,
Andrew Yang talks about like the need for UBI and incoming automation and things like that. And like the current state of our education system is like just to produce cogs in the machine. Just a labor class, a working class that are just gonna, work and show up on time and get the job done. There isn't. Where kids today are being almost like robbed of their creativity in school, and it's just like work, busy work, blah blah blah. But like in the not so far future, there isn't going to be such a need for cogs in the machine anymore because the cogs are automated, right? So I think we need to empower like entrepreneurship and grand ideas.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's also a good segue, because I know we're getting close to wanting to probably wrap it up. We're a little bit after 5 now, so my bad. But I mentioned entrepreneurship. You're quite the entrepreneur yourself. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Describe to us just some of your entrepreneurially, is that a word? your endeavors.
Yes.
In
we're creating it.
I made it up. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love creating things and teaching. And so I'm involved in a dance community. We dance West Coast Swing, and it's a global community and pretty tight knit. And so as part of that community, I've sold custom designed t-shirts and dance shoes. And most recently, I've gotten into teaching dance lessons remotely in Japanese. So I made an awesome website, and then COVID hit. So before that, it'd been like more casual, just with people I know, but I made a website so that I could expand it. And then now no one is able to dance. So, and also all the like top world pros are now online. So it's just very competitive. And anyway, so now while I figure out what I'm going to do next, I created a website that I've wanted to make for a long time. So it's staciamwilson.com. And it's where I'm just going to blog about stuff and create courses to teach things that'll be helpful for people. At some point I might make products, but just kind of a place to create stuff and get it out there.
Yeah, exciting. Unfortunately, with like the stress of this weekend, I didn't get to like read too much of some of the stuff on your website like I wanted to, so we could actually talk a little bit deeper about it. So I'm kind of sad about that, but I can get I can get it straight from you. You should, or if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about the I don't know if it's your first course, but the most recent course that you've put up then on your website.
Yeah. So my Captain's Orders course. So Captain's Orders are, it's kind of like a personal constitution. It's, you think about like how you want to be in the world, how you want your life to go. And then you write it down, addressing specific areas like your body and mind, your identity and self-image, relationships, finances. So basically there are different categories, and you decide, what you want to create, how you want your life to go. And then you write it down, you copy it every day. And it just, you can't repeat the same thing over and over and it not have an effect on how you think and just your self-image and how you approach the world, what you think is possible for you. And so, there's kind of specific ways to word it. And then also the nice thing about it is it's a great way to like dream and create, but it's also good for times when you're like having a hard time and feel confused and feel like things are falling apart, It's kind of an anchor that you can come back to and be like, oh yeah, okay, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. And it's a way to like remind yourself of what you need to hear. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think
yeah.
that's pretty fascinating. I think it sounds like it'd be really useful for me to even to use. Not even, I don't mean even me especially to use. It sounds like something I could really get a lot out of, and for sure, like you bring about what you think about, and if you can like affect what you think about and like what you're attracting for yourself. Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me, is like a tool to like change the like lens and like perspective that you see the world through almost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how long did it take you to put something like that together?
The course?
Yeah. Yeah.
A few weeks.
Okay. You did quite a bit of thinking about it, obviously. What, I guess what,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
So I started using captain's orders, like, almost 2 years ago now. And it was when my dad was dying. He had like dementia and it was awful. And I had no money then, and it was just like a really bad time. And so I started it then, and then I've done it, through last year traveling around Asia. And there was actually a crazy incident where I let someone read them in Thailand, and he stole them and decided he was going to marry me. And it was a really weird, crazy thing.
Did you marry him?
Yeah. No, no. I booked a different hotel. I got out of there.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. But yeah, it was weird. I almost called the police. Everyone was telling me to call the police, and I was like, so embarrassing to be like, he stole my captain's orders. Like,
you gotta.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be embarrassing. You gotta protect yourself.
Yeah.
But okay, so
Yeah.
Shoot, now I'm like so off topic thinking about this guy who's like stalking you and wants to marry you.
It was so bizarre.
In Thailand.
Yeah. But I guess my point is I've just like they've evolved over that time, and yeah, so I've learned a lot about them and added on, and so it was fun kind of analyzing the things that you learn so much when you teach stuff, and so it really made me analyze like what I've been doing and what the reasons are and what the thinking is, and just so I put a lot of that in the course.
What was some of the inspiration that led you to want to develop such a course?
Well, just it's been really helpful for me, and I thought it would probably be helpful for a lot of people. So I don't know of any other courses. I mean, there's kind of similar things out there, I guess. But yeah, I wanted to share it, and so it's cheap. I'm not charging a lot for it, but I do want to, pay for my time. But I wanted to get it out there. Like, it's been so great for me, and I'm really happy. Like, because I talk to people about it a lot, kind of, and so now when I talk to them, I can be like, by the way, if you want your own, like, I have a course, you can learn how to make it, because people are always, interested in what is that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think so. What I'm thinking about right now is trying it myself, seeing what I feel I can get out of it, and then if I'm really enjoying it and liking it and feeling like it's something really impactful for me, I'd love to just share it for you and hopefully get you some more people also checking it out, trying it out and contributing too. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we're quite a bit after 5 now at this point. We should probably wrap it up, I guess. Is there any like last things that are really on your mind?
No, I'm good. Great talking to you. It's so nice. It's okay. The other awesome thing about Unity has been connecting with awesome people. Like, every single person I've met has been so amazing and Unity minded and just really kind, and thinking people. And so, yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely. I was
I'm
excited when
I'm
you said
glad
yes.
we met.
I knew
Oh, yay.
you were. I have a long list of people that I like potentially want to have on the show, and we haven't really interacted much ourselves. But I just see your name regularly, and I see the way that you interact with people on that Facebook group, and I pinged you as someone I knew I wanted to talk to at some point, not like a little bit of time ago. So I'm excited that you accepted the offer to jump on here and chit chat. And every guest that I've had up to this point, I think you're the 25th now at this point, at least the 25th show. I whole like 100% intend on and like talking to you again, right? I'll be really curious to talk to you maybe a year from now, post election. Who knows what happens in that time frame? Be curious to see what you're thinking about in that point in time.
Cool.
And yeah, so look forward to that. And I guess let's stay connected too. Otherwise, outside
Sounds
of just
good.
like podcasting. So, I guess this portion really doesn't need to be on the show, but hit me up anytime. My inbox is always open. I might take a little time to respond because I like to try and communicate with lots of different people. So, but yeah, seriously, hit me up anytime. Again, spell your website for people
Likewise.
real quick.
Stacia, Stacia, Wilson.com.
It's weird to hear you spell your name and you have CIA in your name.
Well, that's how she pronounced it, Stacia. That she was just spelling, phonetically. So
Freaking weird ass substitute teacher. Well, cool. Well, this has been really fun. I'm gonna end the recording. Thanks everyone who
sounds good.
made it this far in the episode. If you tuned in,
thanks everyone.
Appreciate you. Like and subscribe, follow, share, do all those nice things because it really, really helps.
Do it.
We're still kind of building the foundation to this thing, but it's going to take quite a bit to put out this fire. So keep sharing. Hit me up with some feedback. I'm always open to feedback. I want to know like what you're getting out of it, what you think we could do without. I might not change anything based on what you have to say, but it's still curious to hear what's going through your head. So to the listeners, thank you. Stacia, peace out. I'm sure we'll talk for a second once I hit record, or whatever. Peace out, everybody.